After facing its worst drought in living memory, Zambia is focusing on revitalizing its economy and regaining momentum. And joining me to discuss some of the government's initiatives to turn that economy around is Chileshe Moono, a country economist at FNB. Thank you so much for your time, Chileshe. Let's actually start off with really, I guess, what will determine the success or failure of the economy in Zambia, and that is the budget. The 2025 national budget was delivered at the end of last month. What were the pillars of that, and how was it received?
Yeah, thank you very much. And to your point, it is going to underpin our performance going forward. So I think the key takeaways to begin with is around the consistency that the government has shown. Given the drought and the many challenges that the economy is facing, there were thoughts to say maybe they might go all out and spend a bit more to support the economy. But I think they've taken a very sober-minded view to this budget. So spending has increased in nominal terms, or at least is proposed to increase in nominal terms year on year by 22%. But I think the key thing there to note is that spending as a percentage of GDP overall is actually coming down. So if you compare what the target was for 2024, just around 27.8% of GDP. That's proposed to come down to 26.6% of GDP in 2025. So that speaks to fiscal consolidation. Okay. I think the other key things to also note is an increased focus towards social protection. There is an understanding to say that in these challenging times, it's really your most vulnerable within the economy that face these challenges. So there's quite a considerable step up in terms of spending towards social protection, and the expectation is that that will be financed mainly through grants coming through from the various cooperating partners. So that's also stepping up considerably. And I guess the other key thing is around debt restructure. So if you just look at what the planned expenditure for external debt service in 2024 and 2025 is, there is quite a considerable increase, and that speaks to the fact that some agreements were reached with Eurobond holders, and that has given us a definitive position in terms of debt service. So that's starting to come in, and it's definitely positive, because if you compare what the debt service payments look like next year relative to what they would have looked like without a debt restructure, then would have been in a whole lot more fiscal distress. So it's generally very positive. It has been received well by the public and a few other offshore players that we've spoken to as well.
Yeah, of course, as soon as you start talking about a story of fiscal consolidation, we know that that usually is largely welcomed by the markets. But I'm actually just wondering about, the man on the ground, the population, because of course you talk about the increased spending to alleviate the worst drought, but is that going to go far enough?
Yeah, I think the general consensus view on the ground is people understand. I mean, they would have loved to have a bit more incentives, particularly on the pay-as-you-earn tax, where some people were expecting some reduction to give them a form of relief. I think there's also an understanding on the other side that the fiscal position is tight in any case. So yes, the government would like to provide more relief or even spend more to support the population, but there's fiscal constraints as well. So I spoke about the debt service, the external debt service that is now full on, given the debt restructure program that has gone through. So that means that you're having to spend more to service debt, which is what you should rightly do. But from a revenue perspective, it hasn't increased that much considerably. So then that means that obviously people are going to have to have a bit more understanding to say that the government is also challenged. And that's why so far the reception has been fairly okay, because people understand where we're coming from a macroeconomic standpoint.
And of course, this debt restructure has been in the works for a while, since, of course, the default during COVID times. And I'm wondering, on what phase are you in terms of that process?
Yeah, so I would say we're pretty much in the last mile. So if you look at how much debt has been restructured, as the The key ones were around the official creditor debt, which is the bilateral agreements that we reached and MOUs were already agreed on. We then moved on to the Eurobond holder debt, which prolonged a bit, I mean, given the sensitivity of that debt. But finally, in June of this year, a consent solicitation request received favorable response from the bondholders and effectively facilitated that debt exchange program. So that portion of the debt was also solved for, and debt service has actually commenced for Eurobond holders. So really the last portion, which is around 20% of the overall debt profile that had remained. What we're then told is that around 50% of that agreements have been reached with key Chinese creditors such as ICBC and CDB, which is a Chinese development bank. Agreements in principle have been reached. These agreements do pass some of the debt sustainability tests that all the debt restructure parameters need to go through. And so we have a relative level of confidence to say that part of the debt is going to be finalized. And then the other portions of the debt are still ongoing, but it's such a small portion now that we have relative comfort to say we're really in the last mile. It wouldn't serve any creditors good to then frustrate the process at this point, because so many of the other creditors have already been solved for. So it's really the last mile that we are on. Yeah.
Chileshe, just as we wrap up the conversation, I mean, one of the pillars of a working economy and a progressing economy is the stabilization in the currency. I do understand that there is an effort for de-dollarization. Just talk to me about that journey.
Yeah, so to be clear, I think de-dollarization means a whole lot of other things in different jurisdictions. So to be clear, and we did get this clarity from the Director of Financial Markets recently, it's more of a regulation in financial markets, which can be interpreted as de-dollarization. But effectively what it's trying to do is enforce the role of the local currency, the kwacha, as the sole legal tender, which is something that is required for any economy. So what has happened, at least in the last few years, is that because the kwacha has been quite volatile and has been depreciating, we have seen that increasingly more and more businesses and more transactions are then being quoted or priced in foreign currency as businesses try to hedge some of their positions. Now, this is fairly understandable, but when it starts getting to certain alarming levels, it then concerns the central bank. And so what this is supposed to do is effectively just reinforce the role of the kwacha. So it will not stop individuals or businesses from holding foreign currency accounts within the country, or even just holding foreign currency cash. What it does restrict is then pricing or paying for goods and services for local goods and services in foreign currency. And that specification should be clear around local transactions happen within the boundaries of the current economy. And so that will enforce the role of the kwacha as the primary currency that is used within the economy. And in a way, then it does also improve the efficacy of some of the monetary policy transmission mechanism that the central bank tries to do. So again, this is a proposal. As at this stage, there have been various consultations that have been going through, and we have relative comfort to say at some point later this year there will be a final law that is issued which speaks to this proposed regulation that will be coming.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that clarity and really just giving us insight into the economic landscape of Zambia at the moment. That was Chileshe Moono from FNB.